Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support the show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and welcome to episode 122 of Defining Duke Ultimate, a Defining Duke supplement. We're doing back-to-back weeks while Colin's tying the knot with Micah, so we got you covered. We're doing another Spoilercast review discussion, this time for Liza P., and this time I'm joined by, again, an eclectic crew. Let's start off with Gene. Gene, welcome back to DDU once more. You're just our superstar here when it comes to all things Spoilercast. How are you, my friend?
Good to be back on Defining Duke. I'm starting to feel like a regular here, and I feel very
at this point, very
privileged to be in the rotation now. You know,
hell yeah.
What I want to know is, have we vetted our next guest yet?
Oh no,
because
I checked the background, especially his Twitter history. I'm happy to announce that you did get approval, Dustin. Welcome to Last Stand. How are you, my friend?
Welcome to Last Time Media, Dustin.
Thank you. I'm happy to be properly vetted to be on Defining Duke Ultimate. Very much appreciate it. I was just thinking, Matty, I haven't been on this show I think towards the beginning I was.
We did
something.
do a DDU because I remember there were clips we were posting. I think it was like the mascot thing. I don't know. We talked about merchandise.
I don't remember. It's been a long time, so I'm happy to do this. I'm happy to do this episode. We originally, Gene and I talked about doing this episode with someone who's not allowed to be on the podcast. Vetted by us, but we ended up reconfiguring some things. We're happy to do this, and it makes sense. We were saying in the Discord to do this on Ultimate since, while it's a multi-platform game, it's available on Game Pass. So probably a lot of Xbox people out there playing this game.
A lot of the marketing deals around Liza P was around Xbox. You see all the banners, like even in Korea, they were all like, it's on PC Game Pass, you know?
Yeah, they were wise to invest in this one because it goes without saying, for me, this is a phenomenal game, my personal game of the year. And so, as always with our review discussion, Spoilercast, we'll do a non-spoiler section. A lot of your write-ins are actually tailored to that. And then when we're ready to flip the switch, go into spoiler mode, you'll get a nice hearty warning where you can tab off or continue listening, depending on what you want. And then we'll transition to talking more about, bosses and story stuff, because the story in Liza P, in my opinion, is quite good. But gentlemen, are we ready to begin? Because we have a kind of duo question I wanted to kick us off with.
Hell yeah.
Have Rocket Man and Adam Bulgarby here. So I want to do theirs back to back because I think they come together nicely to sort of set the table for us. Just get into general thoughts. Like, how did we feel about the game? And also, I feel like some of the initial presentation of this game can be off-putting to some, which is what Adam's writing gets into. So we'll start with his and then go to Rocket Man. Adam writes, "Hey, definitive symbolic punchers, at what point does inspiration become blatant copying? Shouldn't inspiration be from mechanics and style instead of literally having the same exact UI elements like text boxes for picking up items or menus? Matty already convinced me to give this a try, but damn, I have never seen such levels of plagiarism for a game this size," which is sad because it really seems like the game is truly an original masterpiece from Matty's praise. Shouldn't UI be one of the places where it's easiest to differentiate? It's sad when people complain about it being a FromSoft copy, but it's hard to defend them when they straight copy control pasted parts that they didn't have to. Feels like they drew up the Mona Lisa and gave her a mustache. Meanwhile, Rocket Man says, "Hello, Liza P is arguably the best non-FromSoft Souls-like to date, not only copying the formula, but improving it in many aspects, such as side quests, the humanity system, and overall storytelling. The question is, what can From Software learn from Liza P that could improve their own formula for their next games?" Dustin, I want to kick it to you off the rip here. What do you make of this sort of back and forth that we have within our own write-ins, but also people online? Is it a blatant copycat? Does that make it bad? But also, what do you generally feel about the game? And could From Software learn anything from this game?
Yeah, well, the copycat part is pretty interesting. I mean, there are many copycat games that are, they've created a subgenre of Souls-like games, So in one sense, I can agree. I disagree in that it's like there are many Souls-like, but I will say that Liza P in particular there are certain elements, and maybe when we get into the spoiler area, where I was like, oh, here's a late game boss that is very, very similar to a Bloodborne boss in its very specific style of boss. Here's the way they do the multiple endings, also very, very much like Bloodborne. But at the same time, it doesn't really bother me at all, because I think that this game brings a lot of new things to the table. Some of them good, some of them not so good. I think some of them, like, it was a valiant effort that didn't necessarily pan out completely. But I got to agree with Rocket Man that I think that this is the best non-From Souls-like game for sure, from top to bottom. And I think that in terms of that last question, or whatever, one of the questions, the thing that From Software could learn, first of all, releasing a game that is technically competent. As you know, Liza P runs very, very well, 60 FPS, pretty much straight. I played on PlayStation, and I'm guessing Matty was on Xbox, and Gene, were you on PlayStation?
I was on PC, actually.
Oh, on
wow,
PC.
so
Okay, nice. We got the full gambit.
All the platforms covered here, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I had a fantastic time on the performance mode on PlayStation.
Runs great on the Steam Deck, by the way, too.
Oh, nice.
I played it on the ROG
60
Ally.
FPS, yeah.
Really good there too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of hesitant to say this because I appreciate From Software and I don't want them to change. But one thing I guess they could learn is just that you can tell a great story that is less cryptic and still be cryptic. I'm all about the full level of like, oh, here's this one little line in an item description, and you got to watch Vatividya in order to figure out what happened. I like that, but I also like how Liza P was like, well, we can take that down a notch or two and still have an awesome story.
I would agree. That would have actually been my answer completely. I'll kind of go more in the guidance side of things. I think
Sure.
From Software, Elden Ring to me was a perfect example of, wow, I love how many secrets are packed in this world. It's so dense and it keeps giving back. But I spent over 100 some odd hours in that game, and to know that like the side quests I just completely missed because I did like 3 beats, but then I went past the boss all the way on the eastern side of the map when I had to go to the west in this set of woods and find someone there and talk to them at that specific time. I like that Liza P isn't afraid to say, like, put like a Sophia's face next to an area and pretty much saying like, hey, continue the quest here. They don't give you a waypoint. They don't give you a directional kind of like follow this pathway and this is where you go. It just says, hey, in this area, the side quest continues. And I appreciate that because I'm like you, Dustin. I felt the story in Liza P was actually really great because of how little they show you, but how much they convey to you as a player. It's really impressive. And so I don't mind that they kind of nudge you like, hey, if you want more, like go to Lorenzini Arcade, like go in here, you'll find someone somewhere. And so the areas are, because it's linear, like very compact where it's not difficult to find what you're looking for. Typically they're right next to a Stargazer. And so I appreciate that a lot. And I would hope that FromSoft could look at that as, I think out of all the critiques that Elden Ring got, it was either like, oh, the summons make it too easy, or to me, it was really the side quests that are great are just too easy to miss and too particular. And as you said, perfect word, a little too cryptic, where I think Liza P walks that line perfectly of telling you something very directly. And by the end of the story, you get like a complete idea of the world and what's happening here. Like maybe I'm ignorant, but again, looking at some of the FromSoft games like Elden Ring, I couldn't tell you what the fuck was going on in that world. I was like, this is really cool. I love what's happening here, but like I didn't have this major takeaway when I finished it. But Gene, I want to hear from you on this subject. Where do you stand on it all?
Yeah, first on the topic of copying, right? I'm all for it. I think more games should be copying other ideas. I think there are too many good ideas out there, and I think some developers are just way too proud to copy when they should just copy. You should like it's a good idea. There's nothing wrong with it. Look at how many songs sound the same, but we still jam to them anyways because it sounds good, there's the canon in D, like every song sounds like canon, the classic song, the classical music song canon in D. You can put any kind of lyric over it, but it works because it sounds so good, right? Think about Genshin Impact, right? Obviously, huge Zelda influence, right? But then what if you didn't want to play as Link? What if you wanted to play as a little girl or a tall like Bishi boy, and run around in an anime world like like you do in Breath of the Wild, and you don't have to worry about what weapon degradation, right? And there's Genshin Impact with that exact experience. It's awesome. It feels great. And to expand upon Dustin's point about the storytelling, and you also your point, first of all, the checkpointing at the different areas, awesome. I was like, oh my god, that's so great. And I understood what was going on in Elden Ring, and I love the FromSoft way of storytelling. But there is also, yes, that you don't have to do that, and you can even do it more than how Sekiro did it, where Sekiro was a little bit more straightforward, and then obviously Lies of P is even more straightforward, right? One thing I really enjoyed about Liza P is that the cutscenes would, like, in FromSoft games, when you have a boss cutscene, the only thing that's happening in the cutscene is the boss like flexing at you and being like, "This is my second phase," you know, and then that's all you get in the story, right? Whereas in Lies of P, when the bosses charge you up, they're like, it will show like other things happening around you, you know, which is interesting. And like even as you progress the story, like it would show like the bad guy like charging up or something like that. So it always had this level of intrigue that would push you forward because they're always giving you a little bit more information that makes you a little bit more excited, a little bit more curious about what's going on. Yeah, I don't know what else to say other than that. Also, one more thing. I think Eliza P has much better gank fights than any FromSoft game.
Oh
And
god, yeah.
I see people divided on this issue because there's a the Black Rabbit Brotherhood fights, right?
Yeah.
Where you're basically fighting 4 versus 1, right? And I thought they were spectacular. I thought they were better than the Shadows of Yharnam in Bloodborne. I thought they were not, Ornstein and Smo is a template, right? They were the template. They established
that boss filtered the hell out of me in high school, man. Holy crap! I got filtered so bad.
it was so crazy. It was so intimidating. Everyone remembers the first time they ever fought Ornstein and Smo, but then when you realize that they actually design those two characters to be basically one character, Ornstein kind of hanging back and Smo hanging back while Ornstein is just like drawing aggro to you, right? That's what they kind of did with the 4v1 here, where there's like one guy who's really holding back, and then that they would filter in different fights, and it was so dynamic. Like it was amazing to see like one of the fighters like go under, and then the big guy like jump over them. I was like is this like synchronized swimming, or is this like choreography? And there was so much storytelling during that fight too. Like it was pouring rain, the arena itself is telling the story and setting the mood. And not to say that from software games don't do that. I mean, look at the boss arenas in Elden Ring. They were spectacular. Oh my god, remember the fight with Parthenos, right?
Oh god,
incredible. But I think Liza P also understood that, and they really like told a really cogent story through the boss arenas, through the fighting, like through the dialogue that would happen during the fights. Gemini being a sidekick was also there. So we always talk about how games like talk too much with the sidekick that talks too much, but you never thought that way with Gemini. You never thought, okay, shut up, Gemini. He's always relaying some kind of information at the very beginning of the game when he starts like crackling, like optimal observation point there, and you realize, what's Gemini's deal? Is he an AI? Is he a machine? And then he starts talking like Jiminy Cricket from the Disney movies, which is so interesting. And there's so much like different storytelling going on, and they're not really wasting the information that they tell you. It's always setting some kind of mood or giving you just a little bit more of information to help you really just dive into the world. I was really surprised by that because I thought Liza P was just edgy Pinocchio. I was like, oh, those Koreans, they're just being edgy. Koreans love edginess. And then when I played it, I was like, this is way different. This is actually really thoughtfully told. There's a YouTuber called Max Jarrett who has a really good analysis of Liza P and its ties to Gnosticism. Gemini's lamp is called Monad's lamp, and the monad is actually like the ideal like form of God. And it like the monad is your guiding light, and there it is. There's Gemini being your guiding light. And there's so much going on in the storytelling that once you really break it down, you can really go deep. But if you don't even want to go that deep, the game is still telling you a really clear story about the progression of these puppets, what happened to the city, who the alchemists are, who P might really be, and everything. So I was just blown away by the amount of storytelling that was going on.
Yeah,
Also,
the
shout
subtlety
out
is
Max Starrett real
ahead,
quick. Sorry, Max Starrett. He's been shouted on Sacred too. Probably one of the most underrated YouTube gaming. Well, not just gaming, but YouTubers. He has an awesome video about Metal Gear called "The Most Profound Moment in Gaming History."
Oh, totally, dude.
That's the one I shouted out on Sacred, and it's
Yeah.
amazing. So check him out. But Matty, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're good. I actually am looking up his channel because I've not heard of him. So
Yeah, he's good. He's surprisingly underrated. Yeah.
I see.
Well,
him
he has
now.
364,000 subs, so he's not that underrated. But I don't I feel like his videos aren't shared around enough for how good they are.
That's
He
true.
deserves
Yeah,
more.
he's doing pretty well, but I actually don't hear him cited all that often compared to like your Vati videos or your, like Noah Caldwell's your faces or even your skill ups. So
I really love the subtlety of the storytelling, particularly in the environment. I realized something when I was getting ready to do my review was I looked at Liza P and I was thinking about how much dialogue conveyed to me a story, which there's a decent amount. Never really stops the action for too long. Versus when you're roaming the world. I think of that moment. This isn't a spoiler, but I think of that moment when you get to the bridge right before you meet Geppetto, right? And you see the puppet like hanging from strings. And it's it kind of puts into perspective how fucked up Karate is, first of all. This sort of humans versus puppets conflict. But also it brought to attention, it made me start looking for like the smaller details. And like one of them is right when you step out in the Karate Central Station, like you see people laid out, you see blood trails. The game has excellent, like some of the best in class environmental storytelling that I've seen. And, I used to really only appreciate Bethesda Game Studios for that. I felt like they have some of the best interior decorators because you just look at it and you can put together like, oh, there's a bathtub, there's a toaster here in the tub, and there's a skeleton. Okay, I have an idea of what happened here in this house in Fallout. And you put it together, but the game doesn't stop to say something to you. And I always found that powerful. And Liza P is the first game to me to really feel like it gets it. I think Rocketman and Adam's write-ins really about copying and stuff. I see so many more games than FromSoft here. Like you brought up the Black Rabbit Brotherhood, like in that I see, you see his weapon. Like I see Final Fantasy in that. They
of course
mention a one-winged angel in this game.
Sword.
I see there's Trails elements in this game. Like this dude clearly loves Trails into Azure. Like there's so much about this game that reminds me of so many other games. And I love that as a person who is making a game, right? Like I love seeing clearly that the creators play a lot of games and they all took their own piece and went like, how do we take all of that and put it into one? But kind of tailing off what Gene said, I feel like we get these good ideas from developers and then whether it be pride or in the case of something like, the Nemesis system, it gets trademarked. You don't see the iteration upon it from other developers. And I feel like Liza P with its weapons, the alteration of them, with the quartz system, with the honestly the music, even like I just feel the game adds its own set of layers.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to diegetic music, like when you fight the bunny rabbit, and then like there's a record playing in the background, and it's a girl singing in French.
Yeah, the white lady.
Absolutely, yeah, the white lady, yeah, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And like FromSoft games rarely do that. They kind of started to do that in Elden Ring, where you see the little bat person like singing like in the background in Elden Ring, and that was super creepy.
About that,
yeah, that was such a great moment in Elden Ring. And then I was like, why haven't they done that before? And then like now I see Liza P, and it's like all the music in Liza P is basically diegetic coming through the speaker system. And yeah, just like what Dustin said in the show that shall not be named, like it and just like what you said, like it's very evocative of like BioShock even, right? Like
that's what I was going to say.
Exactly.
Both OG BioShock and BioShock Infinite.
Both, yeah, exactly.
Particularly with Infinite, I mean, they're kind of in that same kind of period, or at least feel reminiscent. I don't know exactly the dates, how they would line up, but
and all the songs were original, and they're all sung by Koreans. French music sung by Koreans. It was so gorgeous. I really hope hope against hope that this game is nominated for the Game Awards, because I love to see some of these songs performed.
I thought the Open Critic aggregate, I think it's at like an 80 something, like a very low 80s. I was surprised by the general. I never saw because I didn't get a review code, and so I think I was playing like Cyberpunk or something. So I was like, all right, I'll just get to it later in Game Pass. But when I finished the game, I was like, that's amazing. This has to be like upper 80s, low 90s maybe. And I saw low 80s. I was like, are you fucking serious? Like, I usually don't care about that, but
that's why I'm glad like a creator as big as like Maximilian Dude is out there saying this game is an 11 out of 10. Like you should play this game, you know.
Got a bunch more write-ins here. Let's talk to Forest Hunter here, getting into the combat a little bit. All right, hey gents, thanks for talking about the game. I just finished it a couple of days ago and I'm playing through New Game Plus, and it's remarkable how the devs nailed the Soulsborne formula. The only issue I have is with parrying and dodging, and I was wondering if you guys felt similarly. The devs seem to endeavor deeply to recreate every facet of a FromSoft Souls game, but then decided not to recreate what I would argue are the two gameplay pieces most essential to how a FromSoft game feels to play. For the first few hours of the game, it was a struggle to play something that looked, sounded, and acted like a FromSoft game, but that didn't feel like one. I eventually overcame it, but it certainly took some time. Did any of you experience this disconnect? So Dustin, let's hear from you. What did you have any trouble with the parrying and dodging? Did you feel like this was a wolf in sheep's clothing at first?
Yeah. So this is where I think I'm probably going to differ from you guys the most. And I've also, in talking about this show on Sacred and other places, that I've seen, I don't want to say like in negative feedback, like people are saying I'm wrong, but people disagree with me. So Liza P, as Forrest writes, is that it kind of is this amalgamation of all the different combats. It's got really fast paced, you know, it has like dodging, sort of like Bloodborne. It's got the parry mechanic, which is very Sekiro. And then it kind of has like a mix of both with the block in as far as Dark Souls. So it's got a little bit of everything in there. And I actually respect that and kind of like that element of it. I personally have a little bit of issue with the execution, more so on the block than anything. I heard some people, because in particular, the iframes on the dodge is pretty low. It's not going to be like Bloodborne in terms of when you dodge, you are totally invincible at that moment.
Bloodborne
right?
was very generous. Yeah.
Right. So,
because that was the only thing you had in Bloodborne. You can only dodge. You know?
Right. Yeah. So, and that was what was tough for me initially. I was like, what does this game want me to do? Initially, I was only dodging because I thought, well, this is supposed to be the Bloodborne ripoff game. You know, like I'm going to dodge. And then I was like, this isn't going to work. I'm going to have to mix in the parry. But the thing is, the parry is not like the Sekiro parry where, and this was very important, is that you can't just tap the parry button. You must hold it. And in addition, you almost need to press it slightly before the parry. And this is where my personal preference comes in. And also, as I have, like, Sekiro is tattooed on my brain at this point. There is no, I don't never fully unlearned my Sekiro tap. Like, I beat the game, I beat the optional boss, so I got all the way through it, but it wasn't really until the very end. I was like, okay, I think I got a handle on this parry, and I think I would rather, of all the things that they just copied, I wish they had just copied the parry mechanic exactly like Sekiro, which you could argue that, well, this was a different experience and it wouldn't have been as challenging, and maybe you wouldn't have got the same level of satisfaction if it was just exactly the same. And I think there is some merit to that, but I don't know, that parry with the kind of the wind up to it and just never quite sat with me, and never felt
like a second early almost.
Yeah. And so, and I don't know, something that I've always wondered is about when we talk about Souls-like games, there's so many of them, in fact, almost all of them have never quite hit for me. And so I'm like, what is the From Software secret sauce? I don't know what, and I've concluded it's multiple elements. It's the game feel, it's the animations, the way they design bosses to cue the player on what they're going to do, which I think this game does. Wind-ups, yeah. I think this game does that pretty well.
Those wind-up delays fuck me up so bad.
Yes.
Oh my God. Like, I won't spoil, but like the final boss, the amount of delays this dude brings out, I'm just like, come on, just hit me. Like, I'm so early to every attack. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no. Well, that's the thing, is that I think that I would have, for their first outing, I think they would have been better served to kind of focus in on one side of the combat than to try to do everything. But they did a pretty good job doing everything. So I'm curious what you guys think, because that's the one area where people are like, I don't know, Dustin, I think the combat's great. Like, it is.
Let's hear from you.
It is great. And I think it's just not something about it in the end. I was like, that never quite fully clicked for me.
Go for it, Gene.
Yeah, I am on both sides of this, where I think that it's great that and Dustin said it perfectly, that it does incorporate like all three like styles from soft games, right? And I love that. I thought it was so interesting, because then yes, you do, when you do play it, you're like, what is the game trying to tell me to do? And then you eventually realize, oh, it wants me to do all of it. You know, you have to do dodge, and then the game for some reason tells you that you can't dodge fury attacks. You totally can dodge fury attacks. You just have to be like at a good enough distance, and the timing has to be correct, right? You can dodge that too. You can't guard those, at least not until New Game Plus Plus, and we can talk about that later. But you can dodge them. But I do agree that the guard parry window is pretty tight, and I think they could have just creeped it up just a little bit more open, and it would have been just. I think it would have been fine. You know, it still would have been challenging, especially with the crazy windups that we were talking about, where they really like trick you into blocking early, and the combos will just switch up like the delays too. And it's very, very tricky. You really have to learn them. You know, like there was one late game boss where like the combo is like 12 attacks long. You know?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know, as soon as I said it, you know exactly who I'm talking about and what combo it is. You can visualize it in your head because you had to learn that crap, you know?
Well, dude, the thing about that attack, dude, not to get it, this is spoiler free, but the thing about that attack is I was like, okay, I'm just running away. When I see that attack starts, I'm not going to attempt to block it.
Yeah.
I could try, but the ratio of how well I can do for each one, it's like every time there's a percent that I'm going to fail, and then I'm fucked for the rest of that attack cycle. So
I always ran away. I always ran away to learn the pattern. So I'd be like bop 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 bop, you know, and I would always try to learn that, and I would still screw it up anyways, right? But then my tactic was I love being able to break the boss's weapons. I think that is so fucking cool.
I learned that like mid game. I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah, I learned it during the Buster Sword fight, where I was just like, oh, it's just half gone now. That's amazing, you know. So so as soon as I learned that, I was like, that's the goal. I'm going to try to do that first for every fight. So that was always like, I always kept dying and losing with the intent of learning every like huge combo, so I can eventually break their weapon and I can just have a much easier time. Because once you break the weapon, they hit their hit damage drops humongously. So that's what I was really trying to do, and that's another thing that I think FromSoft could like learn from. That was really, really cool, and it really, really rewards you for mastering the parry system. But back to what you're saying, yeah, I do agree that the parry system was just a little bit tight, and you know, I mentioned this on Punching Up, but like with Sekiro, the parry was always rewarded with a different animation, so you really, really felt like you were having a sword fight. Whereas in Lies of P, it's just the same block animation, right? The audio is amazing. The audio feedback, the clang, clang, clunk, like it's really, really cool. It's so satisfying, especially once you land those parries. But you know, if it's
that sound that you make when your fist starts up, that like
the wind up, the audio and the wind up is so good. Like when you do the critical attack, your what is it? Just your fatal attack, right?
Yeah, it's like Gears of War. You know, with it reminded me of the chainsaw. It does
have that Gears of War.
It was like that. It woke in some kind of primal 7th grade instinct in me, where it's like, it's time to kill. You know,
Even every time PO opens a door, like you can hear the arm like winding up. You know, and it kind of reminds you of Cyberpunk, where you got the cyber arms, and then when you're ripping open the door, like you see your arms like charge up to open the door, right?
Yeah.
So some of that stuff was just really, really cool.
What I think I had less of a problem with parrying and dodging, not like scale wise, but I think I took less umbrage with the way that, like, I agree the parry window is definitely super tight. Dodging was typically what I was doing, and I like that they had.
You also have to unlock the second dodge too, right? The link dodge.
Yeah,
and I think that's what screws up a lot of people, because you just have the one dodge and it's not that great. I think they could have not made that. To be fair, you do have to unlock. You have to unlock it, but you can't unlock it really early. It's in the phase 1 of the P organs, I believe.
Yeah,
and you definitely should unlock that right away.
Yeah.
But I think they could have just given that to you in the early games, just so you can learn.
I think that and the wake up dodge where you're on your back, that one is like I would say that is the only move that felt it should have been baked in, because the difference of when you get hit and giving yourself another chance before that move and after that move, completely different.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say that, for me, I agree that the parry window was tight. I like that the blocking was sort of like you can die while blocking, which I thought was cool because it made you want to master parrying versus like there were moments in the fight you're like, okay, I'm just gonna eat some damage instead of all of it.
Just turtle it, right? Basically.
Exactly. But what I recognized with a certain boss that I think we're all referencing is it was late game, but it was good I came to that connection because like with New Game Plus, I think it's really important where they make everyone super spongy. Is your build. Not that FromSoft could learn from this, but your build really matters in this game. Like your grindstone choice, big time matters. Like if you're fighting a puppet and you got acid, like that gives you a little advantage. In particular, like upping your resistances. Like I was going in and just shifting pieces per boss fight, which I never did. Normally in all these FromSoft games, and it's not a bad thing, but I take my build, you hit that peak and you just ride it out, right? And the only difference is like, do I need to go leave and level up a little bit? Yes or no? But with this game, like I love that I was going in and like changing wish stones if I wanted to summon, changing out grindstones, even changing my weapon. I had a favorite weapon, which will answer this next question from Jack Doing in a moment. But like I rode with one weapon that I really liked, but I would switch it up per enemy. I'm like, this is too slow. This is too fast, and so on and so forth. And so I like that I was always making adjustments to this game and that they had answers so that even if my pairing wasn't perfect, there were other alternatives beyond summoning to answer the myriad of the game's challenges without feeling like I'm cheating it. Because like summoning, for example, I don't know if you guys summon. I summon a decent amount because like usually phase 1, it's like you and your summon. Like you got this, right? Phase 2, it's you and this boss at its best.
Phase 2, yeah,
right. And you got to fight for your life in phase 2 because it's going to be one-on-one every single time.
Pretty much.
Unless you really get like one of those good runs, which you'll have with some boss fights, which can lead to a little dissatisfaction where you just stagger him the right amount. You like rinse him and your specter's at like full health. But that scarcely happens. So to answer Forrest's question, I think the dodging and the blocking and the parry system actually works way better together than I expected, which is really a nice surprise. But I never had too much of an issue with what was there when it wasn't working in my favor because I felt it was more of me and my build and what weapon I was using and what armor I had on or whatever you want to call the pieces that you equip are. I think that went a really long way for me where it actually led me to appreciating more. It just felt like the game was self-aware. They went, this may be a problem. It's not going to tell you like once you die, like a little UI is going to pop up. Hey, young guy, that's a fire boss there. You might want to put on some fire resistance. Like it never hits you with anything like that.
Yeah.
But
if you're on fire all the time, you should probably figure that out.
Yeah, but like when you start figuring that type of stuff out and using it,
brother, you're on fire.
Well, usually it's like an invisible kind of upgrade. Like you don't feel it really, but in Lies of P, like you'll still get, for example, if you're fighting a fire boss, you'll still get the overheat meter building up.
Yeah.
But instead of it building up in 2 shots, it might take 5 now, which is a huge difference. So I really did appreciate how they balanced things out. I felt it was really fine tuned. But
I'm glad you brought up the elements too, because I think and the items too, because I think a lot of people don't realize that like the elements are really important. Like you really got to be shoring every defenses. You're right in that I never changed my build as much as I did here. Even in Elden Ring, a game that's like 200 hours long, the only time I had to reconfigure my build was with Millennia, where I was like, okay, you know what, whatever I'm doing is not working. I have to. That was the only time throughout the entire like 203 hours that I was playing Elden Ring. Whereas in Lies of P, in the short 25 hours that I played it, I switched up my build like 5-6 times. It was crazy. And it was always to adjust to the elements, and I was always adjusting what items I would bring. Whenever you see the white bar and you stagger, and you're able to stagger them, you don't have to hit the charge R2. Just be like Walter Kopchak from Big Lebowski and throw a bowling ball at their gut.
Oh yeah,
the shot put's underrated. Yeah, a friend showed me that in New Game Plus. I didn't know this. Like, yeah, when they're staggered or they have like the wire on their health bar and you can stagger them. I was watching my Discord stream. He just hawks this thing across the arena and drops him. I'm like, are you serious? It was amazing. I was like, that was like a whatever item for me. And I was like, that's got to be equipped.
I had an easier time with the game because I had all the information. Like you have to hold guard to parry and you can use shot puts and items. So like I was armed with that information. Like if I played this game day one, then I probably would have struggled just like everyone else, you know?
Let's talk a bit about weapons here. Jack Doheny writes in, hey fellas, with how many awesome weapons in the game, what one did you choose to play with? For me, I used the bone saw blade and the police baton for my Unga Bunga build. I'm now on New Game Plus, rocking the 2 Dragon sword, and it's a lot of fun with its parry fable art. Love this game, and it's easily a top 3 game of the year for me. Cheers, and thanks for the great content. Thank you, Jack. We appreciate you. So, Gene, what were you rocking throughout your playthrough? Obviously, we talked about switching out our builds a lot, but what did you end up pulling out?
Yeah, for the beginning, it was a regular puppet saber blade, right? Just a balanced weapon, just whatever. I just ran with that until you can start upgrading the boss weapons, right? And achieving the boss weapons. And I saw the 7 coil sword, the very first boss weapon that you get. And I stuck with that for most of the game until I finally got the 2 Dragon sword, which a lot of people mischaracterize as a katana, which I get. It kind of looks like one, but it's actually a hwando, which is the traditional Korean katana. But it is like the Korean sword of like the royal army, and that's why when Eugenie gives it to you, she's like, "Oh, this is from my home country," and that's when I realized, oh, Eugenie is actually Korean. And I look at her face, it's like, oh yeah, she actually looks Korean. That's interesting.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Dustin, what about you? What did you rock throughout your playthrough?
So I did also use the saber, like Eugene, but I ended up using, and I don't even know. I tried not to look up where it's like, this is the OP weapon or whatever. I'm like, just going to use what feels right to me. And it looked so cool. This was a big part of it. But the etiquette, which is the umbrella, the sword was super fun. I think I used that for the final boss even. But I also have to give a shout out to, what's it called? The one that's like it's called Acidic Crystal Spear, which we were mentioning earlier about the different elements and stuff. With acid being really effective against puppets, that acid crystal spear can really knock people out, or particularly against puppets, are really, it's super, super helpful at points. But yeah, I wanted to comment real quick too about the changing the build. So do you guys go as far to respec characters multiple times? Because that's what I ended up doing. And actually, once we talk about well, I guess I can say this non-spoilery, is I was a little frustrated in the end of the game that I really feel like the final boss does not favor people who use lighter, more like, using like daggers and stuff like that. You have to block so much during that final fight that if your weapon isn't have like a high, I'm trying to remember what the stat is, but like there's certain weapons that are better at blocking. I was having the worst time ever where I had to I had to respec twice because I couldn't figure out. I'm so much more in this. It was so much more about lighter weapons, and any YouTube video I was seeing about people fighting this last boss were all using heavies. I was like, oh, I get it, because you have to block so much.
Yeah.
So it sucked a little bit for me. And I was like, oh, my play style, while I could do this with lighter weapons, it's going to be much, much harder. I don't like that I felt like such a disadvantage because of my playstyle in the end. But I think I ended up, I'm trying to remember how I ended up getting past it. But so I'm a little mixed on that too, where it's like, I like the fact that the game demands different things of me, where there was a point where I respec just kind of like fun, where I was like, oh, this is going to work better. But it doesn't punish you for respecking, but it gets more expensive too throughout the game as well, which I kind of don't like. But that's very From as well, where you can only respec so many times. So I guess if you want to design your game around, hey, you might have to respec, don't punish the player too much for doing it, which this one was pretty forgiving. But so yeah,
I think I got disconnected for a bit, but because as soon as I was talking, Dustin was already halfway through his conversation.
Oh shit!
No, it's just obviously whatever we're using. But I think just to finish my thought, the 2 Dragon sword, I really loved the guard parry. I actually got better at that parry than I did with the regular guard parry for some reason.
Same here. Same here. I think they got the window for that one right, and you can see how the block is a little bit wrong. Yeah,
they did. The window for that is just a little bit more open, and also the audio cue and the visual cue of the like that always told me like when to actually like trigger it.
I think it is
to do the guard parry.
Because the animation is so quick when you tap L1 or LB to block versus the wind up you do. It's easier to time out the parry for that one. Because I mean, I was embarrassing some bosses with it. I was like, this feels amazing.
It does feel, yeah. Like once you get that right, then it feels a little bit embarrassing. You want to check out a cool YouTuber. There's a YouTuber called Ongbal, Ongbal. And he straight up embarrasses the late game bosses with that sword, where he would destroy the second to last boss or the third to last boss in like a minute and a half. Like it's ridiculous. No hit, all parries. It's crazy.
This thumbnail's fire too.
Yeah. He's a really, really good player. Korean player too. I think Korean players are I think they made this game for Koreans. Like, and then once you get the Korean sword, like you just feel like as a Korean, like I just felt like powerful. And they were like, "Oh, the Koreans will get this." And I'm like,
"Right."
What? It's like that old joke when South Park, where they gave Token a bass, and he was like, "I don't know how to play bass," and he's like, "Yeah, you know how to play bass," and he starts like ripping off this funky beat, and it's like, "God damn it." That's why when I play Liza P, I was like I can't just be like Korean and be good at this Korean game, and I just started like parrying like crazy. I'm just like, "Oh, God damn it."
So are you saying that Dustin and I are part Korean now?
Yeah,
we honorary Koreans.
You're like, man, I feel like playing Black Desert Online now after you awoke in a Korean game dev thing within you or something.
I had to look it up just to make sure I remembered what it was. I did a dexterity starting weapon, so it was the Wintry Rapier. That's what I went with, and I built more like technique throughout the entire game because I thought in my head when I heard it was like Bloodborne, I thought, okay, speed is my friend. I want to be quick in and out. And the early game, I don't think you have a very good time with that kind of build. Like I think you get hit pretty hard because, like Dustin mentioned, with the damage reduction rate, you're gonna get smacked. That's the opening clown boss that you had to fight just tore me apart. Then I got my boss souls and I transitioned into I had to look up the name of it just to remember exactly, the Trident of the Covenant. This weapon I loved. And this was like, I call it all reliable. If I could rename a weapon, that's what I would have called it, because whenever I was failing with a boss, it was like, all right, let's take out the Trident. Let's see what happens here. What I loved about it is it had a 30% crit rate. So while it wasn't the strongest weapon you had, when you were hitting certain enemies so quickly, what would happen is you would have a chance to stagger them lightly because you'd hit them with a crit. And there is it's in the final dungeon. There is a amulet you can get, which increases your damage on critical attacks, where for a basic attack, just a simple tap of an R1 and a poke, you could do up to, like, by the end of that game, 800 damage with a single strike, which was pretty crazy without having to wind up or anything, like just quick in and out. And since you're attacking so frequently, it procs a ton. So I found myself really loving this Trident, but like many, I ended up using the Two Dragons sword or whatever it was called, just for style. It just, I'm usually not like that, but this game also kind of got the Fashion Souls stuff right, where like each weapon had personal characteristics. Like my equipment was equipment, while my costume was whatever I wanted to be, so I could look as cool or as wacky, wear the crazy mask they give you or not. So that's what I ended up rocking with. But I want to, just because we still want to get to the spoiler section here, I want to transition into two final questions about kind of build crafting in this game from Michael Lamaro and Dale Catatro, and then we'll get in spoilers. Michael writes, "Hey guys, what did you think about the added Legion arm mechanic? Did you use this much? I used Legion calibers to upgrade various abilities and like the blue acid and landmines. I found the acid more effective against smaller enemies and the mines better for bosses. Apparently there was another mechanic using quenching stones to upgrade the arm further, but I didn't realize this. Thanks." Meanwhile, Dale writes, "What do you think about the P organ and locking upgrades behind quartz rather than ergo or skill points? I wasn't a fan of having to pick and choose upgrades like more pulse cells and upgrading dodge based on how limited quartz is. I wish it was more earned by combat and possible to grind like Sekiro skill points rather than just having to find quartz where it popped up. Otherwise, I love the game. The atmosphere was spot on. Story was good. Combat was good enough. Great game." Thank you, Dale and Michael, for writing in. Dustin, I want to hear from you what your Legion arm selection was and how you felt about the P organ system with the quartz and the upgrades behind it.
Yeah, so the Legion arm, I mean, this is the Sekiro mechanic to a T, which I don't really have a problem with because I like that in Sekiro. And I think they were able to do a lot of interesting, cool, different arms that I really liked. For most of the game, I was using the puppet string because I love that when you fully upgrade it,
I know
you're
it.
no
Yep.
longer pulling enemies, but you're pulling yourself and doing an awesome attack every time.
So sick.
Dude, big fan of the puppet string, but
Attack on Titan vibes.
oh
Big
yeah,
time.
hell yeah, dude, yeah, for sure. So I like that one a lot. The other one that I tried using, because I honestly wasn't super explorative with these, because I just really like the puppet string that I didn't really feel like I needed to go try something else. But the shield arm, which I think is called the Aegis or the Aegis
arm, yeah.
Aegis arm, yeah. A lot when I was having a tough time with bosses and I'd look up got like, okay, here's probably a build you should use. A lot of them recommend using this, saying like, this is kind of cheesy. Once you upgrade it, you can attack while holding it. I never found it helped me in a few situations with bosses, but I was never able to just kind of like hunker down behind my shield and then, put paper cuts in them until they died. It wasn't quite as effective as I was hoping, but so yeah, that one was kind of interesting too. But yeah, some of these other ones I've seen videos of, like the Flameberg in particular seemed like a really cool one as well. But yeah, puppet string for me all day.
I used the puppet string a lot as well, just because I found use in like seeing an enemy on a ledge and just puppet stringing and just pulling them off and just have a good day. See ya. Like I never had to swing a weapon at all. That felt really good. I like how later in the game you can have multiple equipped. Particularly like New Game Plus, you can go up to 3, which is nuts. I really liked, I'm forgetting the name of it, but the bolt gun one was
Falcon Eyes or something, yeah.
Falcon Eye, yeah.
Mhm.
Really underrated. Like you can shoot sticky bombs on them and whatnot. You can dodge and shoot while you're escaping. I mean, it's really good. And that's what I appreciate about the system is I too tried the Aegis. And I found myself liking that a bit because I got the upgrade where when you block, it explodes and kicks the enemy back a bit and kicks you back. I tried it for a couple of bosses. It was never really the answer, but it was good to create space. Like, okay, I gave them a little bit of damage. Doesn't do a lot. I did a little bit of damage, and it lets me just get away from them without having to spend stamina. They just kick me back and take some damage there. So I really liked that one. The other ones I didn't really give a try. Oh, I tried the full minis, the Zap Hand one. Friends swore by it, and I know I didn't upgrade it much because in its initial state, I just wasn't convinced by it. Like I tried pulling it in boss fights. Forgetting the name of it's a mini boss, but it's like the massive giant mech that's just like walking in the sewers by himself.
Oh, he shows up later too.
Yeah, it's a reuse.
Puppet of the future, yeah.
Puppet of the future, right? Yeah.
And I remember like that's the easiest target. And I was just skill issuing it up with this thing. I was like, I'm not connecting at all with this Legion arm, but he loved it. Like, especially when you get the upgrade where you can walk around and use it, you can really nuke for some damage. But I didn't really connect with that. Whereas what I did connect with, to Dale's question, I really liked the P organ system. I liked that the upgrades felt meaningful. I get the complaint that Dale has, and we talked about earlier, how, certain there's like 2 key mechanics that I think maybe you should have had from the start. But I think it was forgivable because I like that as I used it, I felt stronger, which I think we have a problem with today's skill trees and upgrade paths or whatever we want to call them nowadays. Every game has them, and they're usually these passive things, which passive is fine because I just mentioned how my build crafting worked in my advantage, but Lies of P gives you like active tools to use, and it's like exciting when you see in one of those upgrade paths like, oh, increase pull cells, are you kidding me? Give me that right now.
Yeah,
I love that feeling. So I love the leveling system personally. I like that it was rare, and so when I saw a course, I was like, give me that all day. It made me want to do the side quests, any mini boss I found, because I knew the game does a good job at rewarding you. There were times, I'll agree with like Dale, maybe you felt this way, where a little bit of a surprise where like I would go into this like one tucked away chest in a sewage area and I'd beat like a mini boss that didn't even have a health bar, but he was just really tough. And there was a quartz there. I'm like, okay, that was a little hidden. But otherwise, I liked how they handled everything here. So, Gene, I want to hear from you on this Legion Arms, the P organ system. How'd you feel about both?
Yeah, I just looked up the pronunciation. We were all pronouncing it wrong. It's Aegis.
Aegis.
Aegis
There we
Arm,
go.
like Aegis or Aegis.
That's like that game that for Aegis Rim.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and also
so
Aegis,
there's got to be so many ways to say it, because isn't Aegis Persona 3? And so it's like,
probably.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, Aegis armor always shows up in Final Fantasy too. So like, and I guess I'm pronouncing it wrong for the last 30 years. But it's the Aegis arm. I use the Aegis arm, and here's the thing: there's either an exploit or maybe it's intended because they haven't patched it out yet. But if you hold L2 right to hold up the shield, the Aegis shield, right, and then you keep spamming L1 guard, right, you will guard parry every single time, single time. Period. So you can just hold that and just keep guard parrying. So it will be clang, 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 clang. Boom, their weapon's broken.
Wow.
Boom, they're staggered.
I could have really used that on the last boss.
It's a cheat, and I'm surprised you haven't patched it out. But I use that for my New Game Plus runs. Because
you've earned the right to cheat at that point.
Yeah, because god damn it, those health pools, like they are tanky as hell in New Game Plus, and they hit so hard. But I definitely use the Aegis arm, and like Dustin, I also used the puppet string because it's just so cool and so like diverse. I never even touched Falcon Eyes because I just didn't like the aesthetic of it. I just didn't like the Popeye arm, like the fact that
it reminded me so much of a Mega Man Buster. I was like,
yeah, Mega Man. Actually, you know what? Now that you call it a Mega Man Buster, I think I can vibe with that.
Right, that's cool.
It's like P also kind of looks like Sora, like a realistic Sora looking character too.
He does.
Right?
That's so weird that you say.
Yeah. He's like a realistic Disney character basically. So it's cool, And in terms of the P organs, I was actually confused for like the first several hours. I did not know that I had to like, I would put in one quartz. I was like, oh, there you go. But I was like, why isn't my pulse slow increasing? And I was like, oh, I have to fill out the whole thing to unlock it. And then once I figured that out, then it became really, really useful. Just like you said, like I think that there's a lot of cool things that feel really meaningful, and a lot of the little statistics that you would need to use the quartz to unlock that skill, like it really, really allows for a lot of like build diversity. Where you really, really focus on staggering, where you're really focused on just being able to tank more hits, or if you just want to have more attribute resistance or everything like that. Like these are all stuff that you don't really need, but it makes you so much more meaningfully powerful. And in terms of collecting quartz, I like it because it encourages replayability. I love the New Game Plus system in this game. I'm probably skipping ahead, but the reason why I like the New Game Plus system is because it's different from Dark Souls in that it allows you to become more overpowered. Whereas Dark Souls, it's like, no, you're never going to be overpowered until New Game Plus 7. Yeah. Whereas in this game, it's like, okay, if you miss some quartz, just keep collecting them in the next run, and then you'll eventually get them all. And that's what I did. I'm actually max level. Or actually, I'm not max level. I'm level 470 something now.
Whoa.
So because I played the game 4 times already, and I've almost platinum on Steam. I have 41 out of 42 achievements. I screwed up one ending, and we can talk about it later. But like I enjoy that, the fact that I'm just running through this game and I keep collecting quartz, and now I just have all the peak organs unlocked. So I am massively overpowered by the end of this game. It's fun.
Well, let's get into spoilers. Let's not hold ourselves back. We've given the audience a very meaty, meaningful conversation on this game. As you can tell, we talked about a Soulslike for almost an hour without even talking spoilers. So hopefully you can get a vibe of just how chock full of content and secrets this game is, and give it a try. For those of you who don't want to get spoiled moving forward, we're going to transition into spoiler mode now. So please click off the video or stay, whatever you desire. But we are entering spoiler mode in 3, 2, 1. Kasdan Risk writes in, "Hey P-Man, what did you think of the final showdown with Walt Disney? Thought he was a cool final boss, and I'm eager to see where the franchise goes. Take care." I thought this was amazing, Dustin, because I know some people, I saw your tweet, some people thought Chris really spoiled the game, and there was a reply to this comment that says, "I hope this was a joke." So there are still people falling for this.
Yeah, I figured out what happened and why people are believing it, or at least
first, which episode was it, so I can listen to it and maybe other people can listen to it.
It was the most recent Sacred.
Oh, the most recent Sacred. Okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah. So what happened was,
one, for those who don't know the episode label.
Oh yeah. What happened was, I was saying that the ending is one of the best. Gene and I agree it's one of the best endings of the year. Colin if you watch the video, you can see that he starts looking it up as Chris tells the joke and says, the final ending, the boss is Walt Disney. As he says this, Colin is seeing the actual ending and says, "Oh, really?" And I go, "Yeah." So if you're just listening, you don't know that Colin is seeing the actual ending, which I can kind of understand. But also, guys, it's fucking Walt Disney. Like, what reality? Dude, and there was one guy on the Facebook group, nice lad. You know, he was like, "Oh, shit, I'm an idiot." He felt really embarrassed. He was cool, though. Nice guy. The other person left the Patreon. He said, "Fuck this. I'm out. You know, you spoiled Walt Disney at the end of this game for me." But so,
if they had Walt Disney in this game, this would be the last game they ever make.
Dude, they de-thaw him, you know, and they're like, "We'll bring him out." Well, I guess he's bringing him from the future.
He's an actual brain in the jar, right?
Yeah. They had get a portal, they get his frozen body, you know, and then they de-thaw him. And
actually, that would be sick, though.
Oh yeah, definitely.
In all seriousness, I think we all want to leap to the post-credit scene, then we'll kind of work it backwards from there. Phil McCarthy writes in, "Hey boys, greetings from Ireland. My question is simple. Was that post-credit scene the most exciting setup for a potential sequel ever created? I know it has me giddy at the thoughts of what they could do. Thank you for all the incredible content, and don't let the powder, and forget the powder to taint." Thank you, Phil. Yeah, so it seems like we're setting up a series where I guess maybe now, hindsight 2020, you kind of notice like, oh, they're building a Souls-like with Pinocchio. But you see now that with Dorothy from, I believe is the Wizard of Oz, appearing at the end, that this is going to be almost a fairy tale Souls-like series. And the way they're going to interconnect them is exciting. I don't know. What was your guys' takeaway in the sense, like, do you think P is a playable character in the next one? Because there's the 3, I think, endings in the game, or 4. And the true ending that you have to like lie your whole way through, he gives his life to bring Sophia back. But also, some people are saying his face twitches at the end.
He comes
meaning
back.
that he's human, right? So he's
when
alive.
When you continue the game after the ending, that's that's him like being alive and continuing.
Okay, so that makes sense to me. So
P is still alive,
so P is still alive. So you think, like, is it going to be Lies of P2? Is it going to be like something Lies of Oz, or like what? How do you view this? Is it going to be just like individual entries that are like feel like different series? Like, where do you think they go with this? Because that was to me exciting when I heard them say Dorothy and you see the dress and it's red this time instead of blue. I was like, oh shit! Like, okay, I love the idea here. So what do you guys make of it, Gene? I want to hear from you first.
They should call it Lies of O. So every girl gamer would be like, "Oh yeah, we know all about the Lies of O." First of all, as I mentioned, I'm punching up. Lies of P is actually a Korean pun because P is actually means blood in Korean. So the game actually means, well, in the Korean name is P and Gojil, which is, you know, Lies of P. And it's funny because Gojimmal is one of the few Korean words I actually know very well because my ex-girlfriend always called me that, and it means liar. So, and she would always call me that, and like I was like, okay, I understand what you're saying. I don't know Korean, but I get that, you know. And yeah, as Dustin said, I think this is the most hype ending of 2023. It's like getting a Game Awards trailer as your ending, right? Like imagine like if you finish Lies of P and then like you see that, and then you see Lies of O or whatever, and then imagine the hype that you would feel, right? And it's like, no, why don't we just put it at the end of the game, like a post-credit stinger? I did not expect a post-credit stinger. I did not expect it to be fucking Dorothy. And there's so much. If you look back, because I played the game like 3-4 times now, right? If you look back, and they leave so many hints that they are actually hinting towards a greater fairy tale universe. The person who painted that picture of Carlo, which is the original boy, the real boy in Pinocchio, right? Geppetto's son, was named D. Gray, which is Dorian Gray, which is a character who is able to paint and never age, but then the portrait of that person ages horrendously to the point where like the painting will age to look like a monster, even though the person, Dorian Gray himself.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, so that's why it's like Dorian Gray in this universe is someone who's able to make paintings and make that painting evolve depending on what the original subject matter person is doing. Which is why, by the end of the game, like there's a lot. Did you guys unlock the golden lie weapon?
I must have been like a couple lives short. So I got the ending where I think it would be considered the bad ending where Geppetto's like, you're just a puppet. And like he's clearly fucking disgusted with me as he dies.
That's the middle ending.
Okay.
That's the middle ending.
He's very upset with me though. And I definitely got like a middle of the road ending then, because there were some stories I couldn't finish out, like Eugenie's I didn't get to finish out. Of course, Geppetto's you can't finish out unless you get the bad ending. And so, yeah, that's what I'm on the road to now. Because while I played it on Xbox, I want to get at least all the achievements for it because I want to see everything else the game has to offer. What ending did you end up getting, Dustin?
I got the same one as you, the middle one. Okay. Well, first, what's funny is that I did a little save scum where I did it right before where you can decide to give Geppetto your heart or not, because I was worried that I wanted to move on. Not that I wasn't enjoying the game. There was something else that I wanted to play. So I was like, well, in case the optional last boss and the other one is too hard, I'm going to do the save scum. And then I ended up doing it anyway, because I just felt like I couldn't let it go. I was like, I cannot let that final boss not get me.
You gotta find the nameless puppet. Come on.
So as far as this post-credit scene, I got to shout out a video that I watched. And Gene, what you said is very, very interesting. This is a YouTuber named The Inhuman One. He's been doing all kinds of Liza P. lore videos. So the character that is talking to somebody at the end in that post-credit scene is, how do you say his name? Giangio?
Paracelsus.
Paracelsus?
He's under like a different moniker.
Oh, okay.
The guy on the train, right?
Yeah, the guy with the hat.
Yeah, the hat.
Like a sickly little doctor.
Right.
Yeah, the guy who pretends to be an alchemist or whatever like that.
Yeah.
And so
turns out he's just masterminding the entire fucking entire plot.
So when you think about the Liza P might actually be referring to him. There's several characters named P, right? There's Pistrus, which is
I didn't even think of that. That's a good point. That's right. That would be more fitting for him.
But when you see the letter that he leaves at the post game, he signs it PP, and it's like, okay, you were P, because you're never called Pinocchio. You're never called anything. You have no name.
You're either called boy or puppet.
You just call boy or puppet or kid or whatever, So yeah.
Here's the thing. He put out a video about his secret identity.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So he puts out this. I'm not smart enough to figure this out, so I want to be clear. This is all from this guy's video. Go check him out. His theory is about the fact that this guy is actually the Mad Hatter. And so he's part of the Alice in Wonderland universe. And what makes this so compelling into what you said, Gene, was that I'm trying to remember what he says in that call, but talks about he's seeking out immortality, which makes sense that he's the Mad Hatter, because the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland stops time because the queen wants to kill him. So he stops time. So it's always tea time, right? And so he's checking out what's going on in Crop because there's some possibility about immortality stuff. And then you bring up Dorian Gray, which I had no idea had to do with immortality shit as well. So they're kind of threading. I'm curious how Wizard of Oz fits into this immortality. I don't know enough about Wizard of Oz. Or because I know, isn't it Wizard of Oz? Everyone knows the movie, of course, but the movie is just one slice of the story in terms of all those books.
That's all I know about it. So it's completely unexplored territory for me.
Yeah, I never read the original Pinocchio story too. So like all these other characters, like I didn't really get, because obviously my only frame of reference was the Disney movie, which I watched like 70 times when I was a kid. But
But what's so exciting to me about this, because this opened my mind a lot, where I thought, okay, cool. We have Pinocchio, we have Dorothy from Wizard of Oz. That's already cool. But then they throw in Mad Hatter, and I'm like, oh, even more interesting. We've got Alice in Wonderland. But now, Gene, you bring up the picture of Dorian Gray. It's like, oh, they're going hard in the paint then with this MCU style. It was it had Nick Fury energy at the end with Alice showing up. I was like, oh,
return,
shit. Yeah. So,
and also, just beyond that, if they make a Wizard of Oz Soulslike, imagine the fucking Emerald City in a Soulslike, man. Come on, dude. Come on.
Dang.
I think of the Tin Man. That's going to be a terrifying boss.
That's going to be crazy, dude. It's going to be so cool. It's going to be beautiful. It's gonna be like Anna Orlando, but like so much like bigger. You know, like that could be this studio's Anna Orlando movement because that's one thing that this game didn't have is that FromSoft games always have a beautiful Anna Orlando moment, right? That
Yeah.
when you see the castle in Dark Souls 1 and you're just like, oh my god, or even Boletaria in Demon Souls, right? And there was that one area starts with an L in Dark Souls 3 even, you know. And that's one thing that this game didn't really quite have. You see Hotel Crod and you see Crod itself, but it didn't really like sweep you off your feet. So I'm really hoping that with the Wizard of Oz, they have they finally meet their Anna Orlando moment. You walk out of cave and you see the fucking yellow brick road in the Emerald City. Dude.
Yeah, they have a really unique idea here that I don't know how they came up with it. It's interesting because a lot of these fairy tales effectively were apparently really dark stories that got neutered for children, for like Disney audiences, right? And so it's interesting that they're actually technically going back to the roots of a lot of these stories. But I always thought like I have it in my 360 collection. I can't see the name now, but the Alice Madness Returns, that's what it was on 360 and PS3, PC. That was such a cool game to me in high school when I played it. Like I love that it was this dark fairy tale where you're running around. Your main weapon is a kitchen knife, and as you're attacking enemies, it's bloody. They're exploring some really dark themes that this woman has gone through. I mean, really fucked up stuff. And I feel like it was an idea that was just left on the cutting room floor, and no one picked up the ball from there and ran with it. And so that was like another tendril that I felt as I was playing this game. I was like, oh my God, this reminds me of like this one obscure game that I feel no one talks about anymore. So I really like what they're doing here. But you know what was interesting is, I think you put it perfectly, Gene, of how it felt like a trailer at the end of the game, is that I already knew I loved it. And so it managed to make me already be like, okay, I'm in, like whatever you guys are doing, like I'm there day one. And then they put that there as like, well, this is what we're doing next. And it was that, oh shit, like, and it just raised it up a notch.
They're not done cooking. They're not done cooking at all, you know?
Exactly. It's like they just started.
So cool.
It's like they just started. It's crazy that this is their first game and they have this long-term vision at the same time as like being great at students of the game, but also masters of the craft at the same time. Like you can tell out of all the blueprints they borrowed from, right? Like FromSoft is the most, but then you look at how I think in some ways they exceeded FromSoft, and I'm like, are they really the students? Or a student become master at this point? I'm
because
sure the real test will be.
You never get that kind of end. Think about the FromSoft ending. Your character sits on a chair, and then the credits roll. That's the ending of the FromSoft game. I love FromSoft games, but then like every single Dark Souls game is just you sit on a chair on your throne of darkness, and then
I think it just comes down to that story being a massive difference maker here in this game, and now knowing it's this universe, the sky's the limit. So
yeah, and Elden Ring ends the same way. You just sit in a chair, and that's it. That's all you get. You know, there's no tease, there's no anything. You don't really understand the universe any better. It's just like that's it. Whereas in Lies of P, it's like no, this is a Resident Evil game where we're teasing all kinds of stuff. You know.
Yeah, I love that shit. Let's talk a bit about bosses. Lee is Cool Jenkins writes, "Hey, Sacred Duke Punchers. So Lies of P has been my gaming surprise of the year. The bosses are great, but the challenge from other enemies was something harder for me. What non-boss or mini-boss gave you the most trouble? The Mad Clown Puppet took me far too long to beat. Thanks, fellas. Keep pumping them P organs." So we can use this as sort of just a branching off point to talk about all bosses, not just the mini-bosses. But Dustin, what was there a boss or mini-boss that was stomping you out, that gave you the most trouble?
Well, yeah, he brought up that clown. Fuck that clown. I just said, fuck it. I'm leaving. I'm not even going to bother with you because that mini boss has so much health. I don't understand. I can't even imagine on New Game Plus or something like that fighting him. So I was like, fuck this shit. I'm out. I'm just moving on. I don't need your P organ or whatever, the quartz or whatever. Maybe as quartz, I don't even know if it's worth fighting him. So I let him be. Now, for the most part, I didn't have a lot of issues with bosses until the very end of the game, like pretty close to the end of the game. Like those last few really gave me trouble. So particularly, I mean, the Nameless Puppet, it's the final boss of the game. I believe for me, it was the hardest boss of the game, where I probably, all said and done, I probably put 8 hours into fighting just Nameless Puppet because I was having such a hard time. Part of that with my build, I think, was part of the problem, but
Oh yeah, your dagger build. Yeah.
Yeah, the dag, just like, man, particularly the second phase. I was getting so good at the first phase where I was doing it and not taking any damage.
Mm-hmm.
But that second phase was just ruining me over and over and over again. So Nameless Puppet, definitely the hardest. And then as far as I'm trying to think of some of these other ones, like is it Gene, you said it,
Laxasia, I guess.
Laxasia?
It's Laxasia, but I call her
Laxasia?
Waxasia because she literally waxes everyone's ass. Like that is,
Oh.
yeah, she fucking crushes everybody. But yeah, Laxasia.
Yeah, she's
definitely a late game filter.
Yeah.
She definitely destroyed me quite a few times. That was towards the end. I was like, I didn't know whether I should feel bad for using, like, doing the fake multiplayer by bringing in the spirits, or not. They're not spirits, but you know what I mean. But I didn't feel bad at that point. Like, these are fucking really hard, so I'm gonna do that. So yeah, those ones were really tough. I got one complaint overall about bosses, and I want to throw this to you guys. There's too many phase 2 fights in this game.
Interesting.
They're all phase 2s, right?
Right. Yeah.
They're all phase 2s.
There's too many phase 2 fights, and over, I'm like, it's not surprising anymore when you have a phase 2 fight. It's just like,
fair. Yeah.
Just continually like, oh, hey, well, he's back. I'm like, yeah, you kind of lost the luster on that, being the last 8 bosses all have 2 phases. So kind of annoying.
Even the final boss, like, you think they'd have a third phase just to kind of be like, and look, this one's different, but he also has 2 phases.
I'm so glad there was no third phase. No more Sage Sword Ishin or whatever.
Oh, God.
Dude. That's a 10 out of 10 fight. That fight is, I'm okay with 3 phases because of how fucking good it is. I
actually disagree with you, Ishin, that is like the worst boss fight ever.
Really? That's my favorite FromSoft boss fight.
You spent 8 hours on Nameless Puppet. I spent like 3 days on Satan Sword Ishin. I could not figure it out.
There's hatred there, for sure.
It made me dislike Sekiro. I hate it, you know.
Okay.
Because I loved the game all the way up until Demon of Hatred and Satan Sword Ishin. And Demon of Hatred wasn't even as bad as Satan Sword Ishin. I was like I am actively disliking this game because it is day 3 on this boss. I'm doing nothing else but fighting this dude, and I can't figure it out. And I finally did it. It felt like an accident. That game, he definitely filtered me, but yeah.
Damn.
So what bosses did you have trouble with, Gene? Like, what like, was there any mini bosses? You know, because you mentioned you had some tools to start things off. You had the power of information. Was there anyone who was giving you a rough time?
It was a Mad Puppet Clown for sure. When I encountered him in, like, I think the swamp area. I don't know. I forget which. It was like either the swamp area or the town area, but it's both like really, really long stretches. And then, like, he just, like, his reach is like impossible. It's like Spider-Man 2. Like, he's just like reaching across Manhattan to hit you. And I was just like, what is this guy? And then I hit him, and I was like, why am I not doing any damage? This is crazy. That was crazy. I spent like maybe a good hour trying to fight him, and
he gets me on the back punch every time. Like, I see the punch coming in, I sidestep it, and I start running at him like, I got you, son of a bitch. And then I just see the fist come back in and hit me in the head, and I just drop every time, bro.
I think I had really trouble with the roly-poly bosses in this game. It was the Mad Puppet Clown and Simon Manus. Like Luxasia or whatever, she was hard as hell. Like, it took me like a good hour too, right? But like, I eventually figured her out. Even Nameless Puppet, that second phase is crazy for sure. Yeah. But the first phase was easy enough that I felt like, okay, like just like Dustin, I got to a point where I wasn't getting hit at all. And so that's why I was like, okay, let me just focus on the second phase and just throw a shot put at him, you know, because I did that a lot too. But it was Simon Manus. I could not figure out his moveset. I could not figure out his phase 2 when he starts throwing fireballs. And then when the big hand comes down and like takes up half the arena, and I kept getting like knocked back on that. I could not figure out his moveset when he would jump high up in the air. I could not like figure out how to like guard parry that at all. I still don't know how to. So I would, like, whenever he did that, I would just like, that's when I would like turtle up the Aegis shield and just like take that hit, you know. But yeah, Simon Manus took me like a good 3 hours, and that was that. I was like, okay, that is like a classic hard Bloodborne Sekiro boss where I was like, that took me a long time to finish. And yeah, but that was pretty much it though. I did think that there were too many phase 2 bosses. I think we could have started doing the phase 2 around the King of Puppets, which was boss 6, you know. I don't think that the Archbishop needed a phase 2. And also the Swamp Monster, which was also irritating too. That was also another.
That was going to be my answer. That
Go
Swamp
for it. Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah.
Oh, he was tough.
Yeah, he's so
aggressive.
yeah, again, all the roly-poly bosses, the big roly-poly bosses, I struggle with. But yeah, go for it.
Same, because they have I think the most difficult animations to read, and I think it's because they're so big and so quick.
Mhm.
But he had that one move where he just kept rolling over and over at you, and I don't think I was stuck on him for a long time, but it definitely was one of those boss fights where I felt when I beat him I was a little lucky. Like I definitely had a stroke of luck and just got by him. Again, it came down to build crafting. I was like, okay, you look like you're not going to like fire, so I'm going to take some fire out. And that definitely gave me the edge, the damage over time and whatnot. But he was really tough. Mad Puppet Clown, literally to me, is the filter boss. Like that dude, I remember I was at a spot this past, like, I think week and a half ago, and I had my ROG ally with me. I was like, in case I want to play some Liza P while I'm out there. So the only bit of Liza P I played that weekend was I take it out and I'm on Rosa Isabel Street, just trotting along. And there's this fucking clown. I'm like, all right, you're a mini boss out here after all of these enemies. Certainly you're going to be manageable, is literally what I was thinking. And he rinses me in a heartbeat, right? Like I can't find his window. I'm getting close. He's quick. He's got range. Like this guy's got everything. So he kills me right away. Kills me again and again. I'm like, okay. Like Dustin, I was like, I'm fucking running past you. I'm looking for the next Stargazer to at least spawn closer to you. I don't want to kill everyone.
Yeah, the run to that specific Mad Clown was crazy because there's like 3 or 4 flamethrower guys and like the bomb throwing puppets. Like I hated that. That made it even more infuriating for sure.
Yeah, and it was kind of annoying because the game does such a good job with like I call it like no runbacks. Like when you have a tough area, there's usually a Stargazer there to kind of just let you feel comfortable with the challenge. Like, okay, this is going to be tough, but I can take it on. But that one was like, the run back was insane where I broke my code. And I was like, no, I'm not fighting you right now. Like I'm running by and literally directly behind him on the opposite side of the wall is that Stargazer. I was like, fuck it. I'm planting my flag here. I'm coming back around. I'm ganking him. And even when I had the advantage, right, I have the first shot on this asshole. He still wipes me out. He took all my pulse cells, everything. Like he took every ounce of effort, unlike any other boss. I was like, holy shit, this guy is tough. So yeah, he was the one I had the most trouble with. I definitely died to him a ton, but I like it because I always have that moment. Bloodborne taught me this. Bloodborne's opening area, right? Right into where you get to the cleric beast. I died a insane amount of times in those first 3 to 4 hours I was spending there. But the rest of the game, I didn't have as tough of a time because it's like I learned in that zone. And I felt like that was my learning moment because a lot of people say the boss afterwards, which is Romeo, right? Which is Carlo's best friend, which is, if you get the New Game Plus dialogue, is really sad. How he's kind of trying to reach out to help Pinocchio and you just smack his hand away because he doesn't know any better. But that's apparently the filter boss because he's like all over the place in his second phase. But I think because Mad Clown Puppet just broke me down so much, I was like battle hardened. So I went into Romeo. I was like, get the fuck out of the way. I don't care. I don't care if you're my best friend. I am killing you easily. So he took me a couple of tries. But did you guys have any issues with Romeo? And have you checked out some of the New Game Plus dialogue where you don't know what these puppets are saying to you until you run through the game a second time, which I thought was a nice little narrative layer.
Yeah, I need to do a New Game Plus run. I know, Gene, you're like 6 playthroughs in or something like that. What would you?
I have all the endings. The only problem is that there's one ending. It was the super bad ending where you have to go back to Geppetto's office and read something. I didn't get the achievement for that, so now I have to play the game again to get that final achievement, which is but okay. Well, I'm enjoying the game, but yeah.
Right, yeah, dude. I gotta say the Puppet King fight. While I didn't have too much. It wasn't too tough, but that might be aesthetically my favorite boss in the game. Like it's just both when he's like, the big guy, the phase 1 and phase 2, both of them are really awesome. And yeah,
very near Automata.
Dude, that's exactly what I was thinking of. The opera house.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, and then once you have the wave encoder, you can understand what all they're saying. It's very, very sad. You are doing the sad thing, the Shadow Colossus thing. Am I the baddie? And you're kind of not. That's kind of the cool thing about Liza P is that you're not actually the bad guy. You just got led astray, and then you eventually figure things out, and then you do right by the end, possibly.
Yeah, also love after that boss fight with Romeo, because you take out the king of puppets in the next area, you just see the puppets are like lost. Like they're just not doing anything. Like they lost their leader. It was a really cool narrative wrinkle where the game is telling you something. It's what I said earlier. The game's telling you something, but they don't use a word of dialogue. Like I think Jiminy says something along the lines of like they seem lost, like they don't know what they're doing. But that went a really long way with me too, and kind of punctuated that boss fight as one of the major moments in the game. Michael Mashed Potato, very interesting name here, had a cool write-in that I wanted to lean into, which is Stalkers. Did you know you can check your humanity at the Hotel Krot Stargazer after it gets attacked? Just check your nose in the shadows and you will see what I mean. This game is filled with awesome lore. Even some of the boss fights have corrupted subtitles in which at first I thought was Korean. However, if you look closely, you can make out what the bosses are saying. So hopefully, Michael, you're listening to this and you can see what that said in New Game Plus. This is my game of the year, and I also recently just got the Platinum Trophy. The record Fascination is burned into my brain. Also, Laxasia. What the fuck, right? So I don't know. Did you guys know about this little secret here where like a shadow can... Because like I know that when you're lying in the game, you see the golden lies getting longer and longer and eventually becomes a weapon that you can get, right? So
did you know that listening to music also makes you more human too?
Oh, it does.
Yeah. So that's what you could have done, Matty, if you missed some of the stories. Just go to the records and listen to them, because why would a non-living thing sit there and act? Because you have to hear the whole record through. You have to finish the whole song. Why would a non-living thing sit there and listen to a song and be like, oh, I like this song. Oh, this makes me feel good. Oh, I'm becoming more human. You know, like I love that shit. You know,
dude, this shadow thing, I thought that was thumbnail bait. Like I saw a thumbnail that had the shadow with the nose. I was like, oh, that's funny that someone made that in Photoshop. But now I'm seeing a video. Actually, it's this. I don't know if it was this YouTuber that did it in their thumbnail, but it's the same guy I mentioned earlier, the Inhuman one. I'm like, holy shit. Yeah, that shadow. I had no idea. That's really awesome. I don't know how.
Which video is it? I have his channel up.
It says, this changes everything. Lies of P Shadow Easter egg. It was 3 weeks ago.
I want to lay eyes on because I'm very...
Here, I'll post it in the chat for you.
Thank you.
But yeah, the part where it shows the shadow is 1 minute and 49 seconds into that video. And yeah, you can see he's got that long nose doing something. What you doing with that nose, dog? What are you doing? But yeah.
That is incredible.
So many cool little details in this game. So many cool details.
Wow.
And then the cat also starts to become more friendly towards you as you become more human. That was also fun too.
So I'm curious how far I was into being a human, because I went through puberty at some point in the game, where I got a little bit taller, but I never got the gray where your hair changes color.
You didn't become Sephiroth? Oh man.
I did not become Sephiroth. I tried though.
I thought Irene Schwarzer from Trails.
Yeah.
It's gray hair change. Yeah.
Did you get the gray hair change, Matty?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Dang.
If you got the gray hair change, then you were locked in for the best ending.
I didn't get it though, because I watched my friend get the best ending, and
did you give Sophia peace at the end? Did you kill her?
No. I did give her peace at the end. No, I did give her peace at the end, but I didn't get the best, because like you're going to get the best ending is when I think it usually says your heart feels warmth or something like that, and it goes to like pounding. Your heart's beating fast or pounding. That's what it is. I never got pounding.
Oh, okay, yeah, your heart has to be pounding before you hit Sophia. I think that's so. You don't have to lie every single time, but you just have to lie enough times and listen to enough records, basically.
Yeah, so and I think my problem was the records. I one of the side quests I did, I chose to tell the truth, and so they didn't give me a record, so I missed out on that one.
Yeah, I fucked up that one too.
It was like one of the first ones. My friend's like, "What are you gonna pick?" And like he's watching me stream it to him, and I'm like, I'll tell him the truth. Like I'm thinking, like I'm gonna do the right thing. Like this game probably wants me to lie, so I'm gonna take the tough route. And he's like, oh, interesting. Like I only got like an ergo soul thing, and I was like, oh, that was not much. He's like, yeah, you're supposed to get a record. I'm like, I would have fucking rather that. What are you kidding me? Like I need to go start lying then. And so that spurred me in the other direction. But yeah, I missed a ton of the records, and that's what kind of excites me is the music that you do hear in this game is beautiful. And so I just want to keep finding more of that. That's kind of one of the things that's driving me on to a New Game Plus run here. But tons of secrets packed in there. I'm trying to think of other major points in the story that what would you guys want to go over beyond, like we hit Romeo. Like Laxasia. We talked a bit about where, Gene, that was the boss you were talking about at the start of this, where she just has like 12 attacks in a row and she just keeps like flipping over.
Yeah, she has that crazy combo. I'm just like, oh my God, stop. Please stop. Stop moving, please. And then also when you shove your
stagger in.
When you stagger her, she also does another combo, and then she does an AoE attack before she enters the staggered state. That always fucked me.
There's a couple enemies in that game that have a really mean stagger attack, like where they will kill you. She's one of them, and there's also one of the other filter enemies. It was not even a boss. Me and my friends made a joke. We call him CM Punk. It's the dude who you meet in Lorenzini Arcade right before you unlock respecking. He's like this wrestler who's doing like elbow drops. He's like body slamming
juicer,
you and stuff.
right?
Yeah.
And he's like muscular. By the end game, when you're in the final dungeon, there's this version of him that gives off the disruption status effect. So not only does he beat the shit out of you, but he just leaves behind clouds of things that will one-shot you. And that dude kicked my ass too in that final dungeon. That whole final dungeon was really tough too, which I appreciated. It felt like less epic artistically, but it definitely, to me, reminded me of my first time in Zen's Fortress in Dark Souls 1, where it was just booby traps and just beating the shit out of me around every corner and like, just keep going. You'll get to the top eventually. You'll get out of here eventually. And I think it's at the end of that one that you step out into like a forest or something, where once you get to the top and you see everything, it's kind of worth it. It's like a massive payoff.
Mm-hmm. I also really like the thing about FromSoft games is that they usually don't nail the ending. You know, every single one. Dark Souls famously totally shits the bed by the end, right? Shits the bed of chaos. I might say, right?
Oh,
and then Dark Souls 2 and 3 just kind of happens, and Elden Ring, like I don't know about you guys, but I felt so tired of Elden Ring by the end of Elden Ring. I was like, I was
ready to move on. Yeah,
I was like, I'm
and the
done
final
with this
boss, I guess we should say it on this.
Build. Yeah, so I was
final boss of Elden Ring. I was just like that boss sucks too, you know. And it was very anticlimactic.
Yeah, it was
like,
a pain in the ass.
You know, and even like the whole run to Millennia, I was just like, oh, this is so long. So like, I was worried that Lies of P would get that, and I think the only problem with Lies of P's final ending is that maybe it was like one Stargazer too long. That's it. You know, which is like so much closer to perfection than FromSoft ever got it. You know.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think the linear nature of this game helps it out a lot. There's really only one area that the game gives you that's completely optional. Like, it's a totally, and at the end is a quartz. Like, there's not even a boss there. There's like one area where you just, I think it's where you meet Hugo. He's like just waiting outside this gate. Mm-hmm. And then you get, I think, a cryptic vessel. It unlocks all of a sudden. You go back there. And it's just this small zone. But otherwise, I think the linear structure, I wasn't tired once I beat this game, even though I don't like that final dungeon a ton, just again, artistically, because I think the whole entire game is so inspired. Like, I think of when you go to like, this game has a Blighttown moment twice, right? Like, they have the wooden windmill inside the cathedral where I'm like, and the decay in the pools of decay, you're like, okay, I see what you're doing here. At first, I thought that was their Blighttown moment, but then they have that other area where it's like all the scrap puppets go here, and they have like big pools of decay. It's where you find like the two puppets of the future. They have the cannon shooting down on you, and I thought like that was a real inventive take on the patented Blighttown moment, if you will.
Swamp, the famous Miyazaki poison swamp.
Yeah, exactly. The poison swamps, like the things that kind of piss you off. I thought they handled it really well. So when I get to the final place and I'm like, oh, it's a castle. And like, it's just a very plain, tall castle. I think it was the only time I felt like, oh, they're a little limited on budget, because there was very little decorations or anything. Like, they didn't clean it up as much, where when you're roaming Krot, I mean, again, that step out into Krot Central Station, I'll always remember. Remember. Just the flickering lights, the station announcer kind of repeating a loop announcement, and the blood and the puppets. Like, immediately you're like, I get what's going on here. I feel like a little bit of that is lost in that final dungeon. But
yeah, you're right. It could have been a good step out moment. And you're right that aesthetically there wasn't that much decor to really distinguish it, especially
like even in the Laxasia boss, it's just a bridge.
It's just a bridge, yeah. That could have been like the Black Brotherhood and like the King of Puppet. Like arenas were so cool and so inventive. So it was. I like Luxaxia. Like I loved the way she was screaming when she was charging up with lightning. That was cool.
And during that second phase is a little terrifying, which she just rains down on you.
Yeah, her second phase was terrifying. I was like, oh my god, I'm in so much trouble.
It's like one of those phase twos where you say, oh, fuck, because immediately she pulled that on me. I died. I was like, oh, God, like this is going to be really bad for me.
Oh, no, she's Millennia and Radon mixed together. No.
Literally. We have one last question here that I think would be a good way to round out. We talked a bit about the fairy tale stuff. And so I just wanted to look to the future, get your guys' ideas here. Josh Kiss Cult writes in, hey, guys, man, what a special game this is. That post-credit scene was incredible, and it really makes me excited for the future of the series. The question is, what fable/fairy tale do you think would make a good addition to future entries? I love the idea of Alice traveling through a horror version of Wonderland. You should play Alice Madness Returns, Josh. Thanks, and keep a rockin'. So I know we kind of touched on this, but I just think, as always, we always end our spoiler cast with, let's look to the future, right? At least that's how I like to end them. So, Gene, I want to pass it to you for starters and see, we have this list of fairy tales. You know, you can just do a Google search even. What do you think Lies of P should start to pick from, if any at all? Right? We already see with Alice and Dorothy, like we're starting to see the crossovers commence, but what else could they lean into here? Like Rapunzel, Snow White, Cinderella. Like, do you think there's more here for them to do? And if so, do you have any ideas that come to mind?
Yeah, I think, honestly, I do think Alice in Wonderland is probably the most exciting, right? And The Wizard of Oz, honestly. I think the settings for both of those are so evocative that you can do so much with the level design there. And that's one thing that this game really nailed is like every time you felt like that the game should be giving you a shortcut, there was a shortcut. Like, it's like they got the formula down to science, you know, where they're like, oh, I feel like there should be a stargazer here. Oh, there it is, you know? And I'm just really, really excited. So that's why it's like, you're right that the last level was kind of lame, and I hope that they step it up for, you know, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. I do think, well, I don't know, like if it's true that Paracelsus is the Mad Hatter, then I would imagine that Alice in Wonderland is probably the last destination, right? And I think that makes sense because there's so much horror, like genuine horror going on. Obviously, with Alice Madness Returns, I love that game too. I think, like, I really, you know, you want to talk about copying games, like, you know, I wish more, you know, more people, you know, American McGee and everything, you know, amazing. Yeah. Snow White, I think, would probably be the other iconic one too. Obviously, especially since, you know, the entire foundation of Disney is built on Snow White, you know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not like, I wish I could be as creative as them. I wish I could work there. And
I would love to crawl in their heads for a day and just see what they think of, to like look at a fairy tale like this and go like, what if we made the most grueling type of genre based around this? Yeah, and it's such a good idea. Because to me, like when I was looking at a list, because I'm, you know, it wasn't my first thought, but when we got this question, I was curious, and I think Beauty and the Beast would be a really cool fit, like with the castle, obviously like Beast himself. Like I see good potential for, I think I see violent tendencies there, and I think of what they could do. Where I'm wondering, do you guys think that they're going to?
Oh, dude, Jack and the Beanstalk. Dude.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh
yeah. I just wonder if you like, are they going to do like, okay, a game based in the Oz verse, we'll call it, and then one for Alice, or do you think they're going to start kind of like, you'll start game 2 in Krot and make your way to Oz, like through one of those trams, and then make your way to like Wonderland afterwards? Like that's what I'm wondering is, are they going to dedicate a game per, we'll say fairy tale, or are they going to start just pulling together in game 2?
I do think that they'll probably start fusing things together, because we basically saw Frankenstein in this game too, right? He was Victor. He was Victor von Frankenstein, and so it would be cool to like be in the Wizard of Oz, and then it's like, hey, there's the 3 wolves from Little Red Riding Hood, you know?
Yeah.
And then you find out Dorothy is not even Dorothy. She's Little Red Riding Hood also, you know, like little.
That's who I thought it was at first. That's why I was like,
because of red dress, because we know Dorothy from the movies has a blue dress, right? And it wasn't until the shoes clicked where I was like, oh, she's definitely Dorothy, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to think what do they have access? Like I searched like copyright or public domain stories and stuff.
Public
like
domain
that.
Universe, you know?
Yeah, the public domain classic literature. I think they have a lot of access to, and so lock in Wizard of Oz and lock in Alice in Wonderland. But I was thinking, okay, so if one of the key things that tie these together is that whoever the person, I already forgot the name, the Mad Hatter guy, if he's looking for different paths to immortality, the two things I thought of, I don't know if these would make fun games, but it at least could make sense from a story perspective, is if they did the 1001 Nights or Arabian Nights and did like Aladdin, where there's the genie where you could ask for a wish for eternal life or something like that. So maybe there's like an Aladdin angle that you could do, or Neverland with Peter Pan, who is forever a boy.
Oh,
you know, so maybe there's something
find
there
out
too.
That P is actually Peter Pan.
Oh,
Yo.
dang!
And then they'll make life
At the end of the game, you are still P, and then you're like, okay, Peter, you'll be a forever young boy, and you're just like, oh my god!
I just saw that the gingerbread man is a public domain fairy tale. So
dude, there you go, dude.
That'd be a hilarious optional boss.
The final game, the very last P, is Phil Spencer. They connected to the real world.
Lies of Phil.
The Lies of Phil.
That was, oh yeah, that's a joke on another podcast. We'll just say that. But I'm saying that all these P's could come together. Peter and Pinocchio and Phil. You know?
Yeah, I'm very excited for the future of this series. I think there's just the sky's the limit really for them, and they seem to have a really good idea here. I'm just like looking through all of these. Rapunzel would be an interesting one.
Oh, the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, the headless horseman. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they really could just.
Dude, they could just. That's the most exciting thing about the anime is that you could just go crazy. You are like that's the genius of it, is that like they use these recognizable stories, and like they activate the audience's imagination. You know, you can just really go crazy with this, way more than even Marvel could. You know. Because Marvel is always going to be stuck within whatever, you know, Venom's always going to be Venom and Peter's always going to be Peter, right? Whereas like in this one, it's like they can just go crazy with it, you know? Geppetto is the bad guy, you know? He's an evil father, you know?
Yeah, I'm very excited and gonna grind this game tonight. So back to more Lies of P, I suppose. Gentlemen, is there anything else we want to say in a spoiler or non-spoiler fashion to kind of round out the conversation here for Lies of P?
Just congrats to the studio for making the first Soulslike that I've been into. I've tried many of them, and I wasn't sure about this game, particularly because I wonder if that demo hurt them initially, because people really felt extra with that demo that the dodge wasn't quite right, and they took that feedback and changed some things. And even though the dodge wasn't, you know, we talked about the balance between the dodge and the block. I'm not sure if it was quite right, but it was way better. So I was apprehensive about getting the game initially, because I thought I wasn't sure about how it felt in that demo, but then clearly it was you know, improved upon and clearly a big success for them. No console wars here, but surely they were unsure about how the game was going to do and sold it on Game Pass. And I think that's a valid option. This is a new studio doing a new IP, doing something very different. Well, I guess similar and different at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Doing something kind of out there, a Pinocchio game. And so not only was it successful on Game Pass, but also they, million sold recently?
Yeah.
So
yeah, million plus copies sold.
That's pretty good.
Huge success story for a new team and a new IP.
Sheen, how about you? Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I've just been really interested in Round 8 now. I've been watching the developer interviews on their official Lies of P YouTube channel. They seem very, very passionate. And going back to what I said earlier about not being afraid to copy things, like they're just unabashedly like, oh, this is a Souls-like. We love Elden Ring. We love Dark Souls. And they would ask like other players, they're like, oh, what kind of Souls-like do you like? And they're like, oh, I love Elden Ring. And this was like a lot like Elden Ring, blah, blah. They're openly saying like, hey, compare our game to the FromSoft games and see what we did right here and see what we did interesting. And I think that's very exciting. It's very transparent and it's very like humble, you know? And I'm just like, as a Korean, I'm just so proud to see them do so well. You know, we all have been talking and waiting for the Korean wave of video games to begin. And you know, there's Black Desert Online, Crimson Desert, and Stellar Blade, right? That we're all waiting for on the PS5. But that's just never coming out. So it's just really, I feel like Lies of P is the first game out of Korea to to really capture, what it takes to become to play on this global stage. And I'm excited for them, and I want to meet them, and it's I just feel like a strong connection to it because I'm Korean, and I can feel like the Korean culture in it too, which makes it like that much more special. And I can just feel the Koreanness of it, even with all the singers. There's the song "Feel." You probably got that record right from the old lady who was looking for a baby, and you give her a puppet.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and then like I looked up her YouTube, and yeah, she's just a Korean woman, and she performs the song on her YouTube, and it just sounds so good. And like I have a strong connection to her because she has the exact same name as one of my ex-girlfriends. So and coincidentally, it was the one who always called me liar. So
do we miss this ex, Gene?
Not really. She was. I mean, she kept calling me a liar, and it was not for great reasons. But we don't have to go into that. But yeah, just really cool to see a Korean studio like do so well. I was so happy to see that they sold 1 million. It just means that like the future is bright for them, and we're just gonna. That's just the most exciting thing. They made it more exciting to look forward to their next game, which is rare for a studio to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it does bring you back where like we used to get those types of endings in like the early 2000s that would just, I mean, to an egregious extent, sometimes really sequel bait you, but this felt like the right amount of that. And I'll just echo what you mentioned about for closing thoughts, that inspiration and not being apologetic about it. I know some people see a copycat, but I like, we talked about this, Gene, on DD before, that we wish more teams were like, yeah, I'm a fan of this game, and we saw it and thought it was cool and wanted to make something like it. Mm-hmm. I've always been a firm believer that while this is a business, one of the things that makes it go around is that cycle of inspiration. Like you play a thing, you think of your thing. How do I mix those ideas in? Because these ideas are good, but how do I do it in my own original way? Mm-hmm. And you get something like Liza P, right? And so on and so forth. I mean, I think there have been more egregious ones where a lot of companies have taken like the Bungie UI, and it's like you haven't borrowed any ideas from Bungie in a shooter space, but like everyone takes the Destiny UI, and how you navigate with a cursor. It just, that type of stuff can feel a little too copy pasted, but I feel like if you enjoy these types of games and you want to make them, like these developers shouldn't be shamed because they did an amazing job. Like it's not like they're coming in as imitators. I think they're coming in as strong competitors, and I think they probably, I think if you ask them, like, what do you think separates yourself from the FromSoft games? I think they wouldn't tell you the gameplay. They'd say it's our story. Like we are telling a really good story here, and we have a universe of fairy tales that we're going to bring to the Souls genre. And I mean, it's brilliant. It's brilliant because as this ending becomes less secretive and people start just openly having conversations about it as the years go on, it's really going to propel when the next Lies of game or whatever they call it is announced. I think it's going to be a megaton. Like, I think it's literally going to be everyone talking about it, because they're going to be like, oh, like I didn't play Liza P, and they're going to see like The Wizard of Oz or Alice in Wonderland. They're going to see something and go like, wait, what? What about the first game's about Pinocchio? And they're exactly, like, yeah, well, in the end of the first game,
what? Are you kidding me? Like Colin seem excited about that too, right? It's an easy idea to grasp on, even though Colin hates like these type of games,
Yeah, Colin was like, oh, really? I was like, yeah.
If Colin actually liked Soulslike, the gameplay itself, then this would have been the Soulslike that I think.
I was trying to tell Cog, like, because Cog's not a Soulslike guy either. Like, he's very, I don't like how the co-op's handled and stuff. I said, look, get through the first boss. You get to summon the whole game. I said, give it a try. I said, there's a story here. Like, I'm trying to get him in. I feel like this would be the one that is a breakthrough for a lot of people, but it's tough. There's no doubt about it. I think
this is the Demon Souls for the studio, where like a lot of people overlook Demon Souls, but then as soon as Dark Souls came out, the Demon Souls community was hype, and then other people were like, oh, this looks interesting,
Demon Souls I always remember, because I got on that hype train and like picked it up, and
same here.
I got to the area. Was it 3 or 4-1? It was wherever the enemy starts. He's a skeleton with a scimitar, and he's rolling forward down the stair set towards you. God, I had so much trouble with that. Like he just kept rinsing me.
That was my farm run. That was my farm ending right there for Demon Souls, and that's why I also love Lies of P. It's very linear. There's Act 1, there's World 1, there's World 2, World 3, exactly like Demon Souls. A lot of people forget that Demon Souls and Mario Brothers has the same structure. At World 1,
they did.
World 1-1, World 1-2, World 1-3. It's the same thing, you know.
Never thought of that. It's a good point. Yeah. So Lies of P, ladies and gentlemen, if you got this deep, you haven't given it a shot. I think we've given you enough reasons to, at least if you're a Game Pass subscriber, give it a download. If you are
Dude, it's on Game Pass, man.
a PlayStation owner, PC owner, and that's it, then go buy this thing. It's worth it.
Yeah, if you think that you were tired of these games after Elden Ring, think again, honestly, because that's what I thought. That's why I slept on
I was
this
just
game.
waiting for the next Elden Ring DLC, frankly. But then I was like, let me give this a shot. It's so good.
That's why I came on this so late. I mean, like both of you played it way earlier than I did, and I was like, I don't need to play another Soulslike right now. And then I played it, and I was like, wait, I'm actually not done with this genre yet. If you do it this well, I'm in all the way, baby. You know,
hell yeah.
I agree. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you so much for tuning in to a nice, meaty bonus DDU this week. Like that word.
Girthy.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we will catch you. I don't know if we're going to do another episode of DDU the following week just to make sure we're staying on schedule, or 2 weeks from now, but we'll see you in an episode of DDU sometime in the near future on episode 123. Until then, Gene, Dustin, thank you so much for joining me for this. It was a great time, and take great care of yourselves, everyone. And we'll see you next time. Peace out.
Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is recorded from the United States of America. The show is conceived by Matthew Mr. Matty Plays Schroeder and me, Colin Moriarty, and is written and produced by Matthew Schroeder. Matty's co-host is Barry Lord Cognito Eversley. Defining Duke's executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Defining Duke, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level on Patreon, and we're thankful for your kindness and generosity.